Stop dropping thousands of dollars on Centerfire ammunition and fighting heavy recoil just because you think air rifles are still those cheap plastic toys you pumped up in your backyard as a kid. Look, I hear the traditional firearm guys laughing from here. They think PCP rifles are just mouse fart quiet plinkers meant for taking out small garden pests. They have absolutely no clue what is happening in the tactical airgun world. We are talking about massive slug slingers that hit with enough foot-pounds of energy to drop heavy North American game like thick-skinned wild hogs and mature whitetail deer right in their tracks. We are breaking down the 7 most powerful tactical air rifles on the planet. These are not toys. These are high-pressure air platforms pushing heavy lead with surgical precision. When you pair these rigs with premium traditional glass optics, you get a hunting setup that rivals custom centerfire rifles without the noise and the muzzle blast. Moving on to number 7, we have the RTI Mora Sniper. This rig throws 35 caliber lead downrange with the kind of consistency that target shooters dream about, pushing out 225 foot-pounds of energy. It is a solid block of aluminum that handles high pressure like a champ. Look, the secret here is under the hood. It utilizes a massive 125 cubic centimeters power plenum paired with an adjustable assisted valve. Instead of just relying on a heavy hammer spring, it bleeds off a little air from the barrel to force the valve closed instantly. That completely kills valve bounce, giving you incredible efficiency and perfect shot strings when you're waiting on a mature whitetail to step out. The trigger breaks clean, snapping like a dry pine twig under your boot. When you pull it, the firing sound is just a muffled thud, sounding like a heavy mallet hitting an oak stump. You mount up a premium traditional glass optic on this rail, something like a AirForce NX6 trademark 4-24x50, and you have an absolute tack driver. Forget the digital thermal stuff, this gun deserves clean, clear glass. But here's the truth. The ergonomics are completely unforgiving. Because the chassis is milled from a single block of aerospace aluminum, it feels like you are lugging around a steel beam. It is heavy, it is stiff, and trying to swing this massive rifle inside a tight hunting blind is a real headache. I know the traditional firearm guys will doubt this, but listen up. Now we get into the serious hunting rigs. Stepping up to number 6, we have the Western Airguns Rattler. This semi-automatic beast spits 357 lead with unbelievable speed, putting out up to 270 foot-pounds of energy. You get a massive 580 CCS carbon fiber bottle, feeding a fixed 15-round magazine that can handle the longest, heaviest slugs you can find on the market. Look at the internals, and you see why this is a mechanical masterpiece. It runs a hammerless titanium firing system. Instead of using a heavy steel hammer that causes a ton of mechanical bounce and vibration, this rig uses a feather-light titanium sear to drop the lock time down to almost nothing. That lets you dump a massive amount of high-pressure air instantly without the rifle shaking itself apart, making it an absolute tack driver for thick-skinned wild hogs or elk. The trigger is incredibly crisp, breaking like thin ice cracking under your heavy boots. When it goes off, the fully shrouded barrel tames the blast, making it sound like a heavy leather whip cracking in an empty warehouse. But the damage to your wallet is absolutely brutal when it comes to feeding this beast. Because it can shoot so fast, and because premium 357 slugs cost a fortune, taking this air hog to the range will drain your bank account faster than you can imagine. Stepping up the power, we land at number 5 with the BinTac Megalodon. This rig completely changes the game by bringing pump-action speed to the big-bore airgun world, throwing massive 58 cal slugs downrange with up to 585 foot-pounds of energy. This is an absolute beast of a brush gun that can drop heavy wild hogs in thick timber. But wait until you see the absolute shoulder-bruising artillery piece sitting at number 1. When you are ready to fire this pump-action rig, the trigger pull is surprisingly stiff, feeling like dragging a rusty chain over a wooden beam. But when it breaks, it roars, sounding like a thick oak door slamming shut in an empty hallway. The true magic here is the hot swap dual air cylinder system. Instead of being tied to a heavy fill tank in the woods, it uses parallel front air tubes that you can literally unscrew and swap out in the field without depressurizing the whole gun. This means you can carry pre-filled 125 CCS cylinders in your hunting pack, giving you a continuous supply of high-pressure air for those long days chasing whitetail. But here's the catch. It absolutely hates lightweight ammunition. Because of the massive air dump required to cycle the heavy mechanics and push that giant slug, if you try to shoot anything other than perfectly cast heavy lead, they will spiral out of control and completely miss the target. It is an incredibly picky eater that demands the heaviest slugs you can buy. Climbing further into the heavy-hitting territory, we find the Umarex hammer sitting at number 4. This American-made monster pushes 50 caliber slugs with brutal authority, generating an incredible 760 foot-pounds of energy. Built for serious big game hunters chasing elk and mature whitetail, it relies on a sophisticated internal mechanical regulator. While most unregulated big bores lose power with every single shot, this system precisely meters 3,000 psi of air for every trigger pull from its 24 cubic inch carbon fiber bottle. That completely eliminates regulator creep and ensures your point of impact stays mathematically identical for 3 consecutive full power shots before you need a refill. Feeling the trigger break is like snapping a brittle winter icicle in half with your bare hands. When that massive valve dumps the air, the rifle barks, sounding like a thick sheet of heavy canvas tearing under extreme tension. Pairing this straight pull repeater with a premium piece of traditional glass like a Swarovski optic turns it into the ultimate backcountry tool. But honestly, the exterior build quality leaves a lot to be desired. The barrel shroud feels incredibly flimsy, and the factory plastic furniture has a hollow, cheap resonance that feels out of place on a high-end hunting rig. It is a true mechanical powerhouse, but it definitely feels like the manufacturer cut corners on the overall aesthetics to keep the weight and cost down. Entering the elite tier, we have the AirForce Texan LSS Carbon Fiber Series sitting at number 3. Spits 50 cal lead, downrange with devastating force, cracking the 800 foot-pounds of energy barrier. Weighing in at just 8 pounds, this lightweight cannon is an absolute slug shooter, designed for serious hunters, pushing the limits of airgun ballistics. The engineering secret here is the linear airflow design. Instead of forcing high-pressure air from the bottle around tight 90-degree corners, the valve sits perfectly in line with the 34-inch barrel, allowing the air from the 500 cubic centimeters carbon fiber tank to expand straight forward without any restriction. Combine that with the integrated baffles inside the massive carbon fiber shroud, and it tames the immense blast into something manageable for the shooter. Pulling the trigger feels like snapping a crisp celery stalk in half. When that straight-line valve opens, the firing report sounds like a heavy sledgehammer striking a damp dirt floor, completely masking the incredible power being unleashed from the 3,625 PSI fill. But here is the deal breaker for anyone hunting in thick brush. It is obnoxiously long, measuring 54 inches from end to end. Carrying this massive pole through dense timber or trying to swing it quickly inside a compact ground blind is a logistical nightmare that will snag on every single branch. Closer to the crown, we find the Hatsan Piledriver sitting at number 2. This bullpup monster sends 50 caliber lead, flying with unbelievable force, generating a massive 800 foot-pounds of energy. It is an absolute powerhouse, designed strictly for serious big game hunters who need maximum kinetic transfer. The true engineering marvel hiding inside this 46.5-inch rifle is its gas piston hammer spring system. Instead of relying on a traditional coiled steel spring that loses tension and vibrates violently, it uses a sealed gas strut to drive the hammer into the valve. This dramatically reduces lock time and guarantees a perfectly consistent, lightning-fast strike on the main valve, dumping that 4,351 psi of air right behind the Slug without any wasted turbulence. Squeezing the trigger feels strangely soft, pulling through like a spoon, cutting into cold butter. But when that gas piston drops, the firing report is absolutely deafening, sounding like a heavy commercial truck tire blowing out on hot asphalt. But the damage to your wallet does not stop when you buy the rifle, because it uses a massive proprietary loading port designed for single-shot custom ammunition. Feeding this beast the premium heavy slugs it requires will drain your bank account faster than you can blink. You are forced to buy incredibly expensive specialty lead just to keep it shooting straight, making every pull of the trigger a serious financial decision. Look, we have seen some incredible air power today. We looked at the extreme speed of the Rattler and the massive air capacity of the Texan. We are talking about rifles pushing the absolute limits of what high-pressure air can do to heavy game. But none of them come close to the sheer, earth-shattering power of the King. Taking the number 1 spot is the AEA Zeus Mark II. This 72 cal behemoth completely redefines the big bore category, pushing an 850 grain slug to generate an absolutely mind-bending 1,500 foot-pounds of energy. To put that in perspective, it gives you nearly double the kinetic energy of the Hatsan Piledriver sitting at number 2, and it delivers that payload with a massive footprint that makes the Umarex hammer at number 4 look like a backyard plinker. The secret to this raw power is its monstrous 600 cubic centimeters air reservoir, paired with a heavily reinforced side lever action. It does not bother with complex regulators or gas struts. Instead, it relies on an oversized transfer port and a massive brute force valve dump to unleash a tidal wave of air at 4,500 psi, sending that heavy cast slug down the 30-inch barrel with absolutely zero restriction. You mount a high-end traditional glass scope, like a Zeus or Leupold, on that Picatinny rail, and you have an unparalleled hunting tool. Pulling the trigger feels surprisingly smooth, slipping backward like glass sliding on oiled steel. But when that valve dumps, it roars, sounding like a stick of dynamite detonating inside an empty steel dumpster. That is the reality of the big bore market today. You have seen the raw power, the mechanical trade-offs, and the undeniable truth about what these high-pressure platforms can actually do in the field when you push them to the absolute limit. We started this list talking about the precision of the 35 cal and worked our way all the way up to the 72 cal monsters that completely rewrite the rule book on airgun ballistics. If you are still shooting cheap springers and wondering why you cannot drop heavy game, it is time to upgrade your entire setup. Stop settling for the noise and invest in a tactical rig that actually delivers massive foot-pounds of energy exactly where you need it. Watch your windage. I am out.